Am I the a-hole for hosting a fundraiser, bluntly saying that it was for a teenager whose parents left her homeless? Her parents are furious. My youngest daughter is a senior in high school. One of her best friends, Lily, just turned 18 as the school year was starting and her parents kicked her out of the house that same day. My daughter told me she was sleeping on different friends' couches and talking about dropping out to work a job. So my family took her in so she could finish school. I just can't imagine a parent kicking their kid out like that. So after we did that, my daughter and Lily decided to have a community barbecue/bake sale to fundraise for some money to cover food and housing expenses. It wasn't anything I ever asked for, but the girls wanted to do something to contribute for groceries and bills. The girls made flyers and little promos for social media, and they were pretty straightforward about what was going on. They said, community barbecue/fundraiser for Lily, and a note from Lily saying, as you may know, my parents kicked me out of the house and cut off any financial support on my 18th birthday, leaving me homeless with no money or car. The Smiths gave me a home, expecting nothing in return except I stay in school and graduate. I wanted to do something to give back and pay my own way. Anyway, I shared that on social media and so did the girls, and a lot of their friends at school. The barbecue was a huge success. Almost all of our neighbors came by, and so many kids from my daughter's school and a lot of our family and family friends. The girls ended up raising several $1,000s, which I ended up putting in an education fund for Lily, where I'm also putting stuff like the cash she gives me from her job for groceries, and stuff like that. I'm planning on surprising her with it closer to graduation. Anyway, Lily's parents are irate. They saw that I posted a flyer on a community Facebook page and most everyone in town saw it. I got a call from her dad screaming into the phone at me for slandering their family online, which I felt like was such BS. I told him to either buck up and act like a parent ought to or lose my number. He started yelling on the phone again, so I hung up and blocked his number. Then I got a bunch of calls from another number. It was Lily's mom, getting angry at me about how I don't know what she and her husband have been through, and it was trashy of me to be begging the whole town for money for myself and acting like it was their fault. I was like, well, it was your fault. And she got so angry and said that she and her husband had given her daughter everything, and that she was ungrateful, which I feel is BS because they ain't even giving her a roof over her head. Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter and her friend who was kicked out at 18 host a fundraiser that was very blunt? Said it was to raise money after her family kicked her out? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Frankly, that's just a horrible thing for a parent to do. If they don't want to get slandered, maybe don't kick your child out the instant they become an adult. As many people have pointed out, it doesn't actually slander against the parents if it's true. I used slander for lack of a better term. The idea that kids magically become adult the moment they turn 18 is such BS. These awful parents were only acting as parents because they were legally required to be. The moment their child was legally an adult, they felt like they were off the hook. I'm sure their daughter is better off without them, but what a difficult journey that is. Loving parents try to make their kids' life better, not worse. Not the a-hole. They're just annoyed they've been called out on their horrible behavior, and now everyone knows about their crappy parenting. They're ashamed and angry that they've been exposed, but they're putting the blame on you instead of reflecting on their own issues. You could end a thread right there, honestly. They kicked an 18-year-old out on day one of adulthood, unprepared in the slightest. Unless she's the worst person ever. That's absolutely messed up. Not the a-hole. Imagine kicking your high schooler out of the house and then getting upset at people trying to help her out. They're probably angry they can't get their hands into fundraiser money. Right? They sound like the type of parents who think their daughter owes them something since they gave her life even though she didn't ask to be born. Infuriating. Next story. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing our female coworker? Both my husband and I work for a dispensary as co-owners and managers. He is inventory manager and I'm kitchen manager, though up until last month I was at a different shop. I recently got the transfer approval. In our shop, we only employ 11 people, 3 women including me, and 8 men. One of the women is the owner's wife and she handles the finances while the other woman, Jen, handles the front end. Now, to be blunt here, Jen is a smoke show. Drop-dead gorgeous young lady, and to be blunt again, all the men here drool over her. Probably my husband included. I mean, even I drool over her, let's be honest. But she's also, I don't know how to put it. She runs through the men here. She has already dated or hooked up with 3 of them, and recently her eyes went to my husband. I'm used to this type of behavior because my husband is also a solid 10 on a bad day. But she also knows he is married, so there is definitely a disrespectful aspects of things there. However, she did not know that I was his wife until this morning. So my husband came to me yesterday and was like, "Listen, Jen has been trying to take breaks with me, and she often gets into my truck without asking whenever she sees me sitting outside, asking that I smoke her up and being flirty, as in touching his arms and legs type of thing." So I asked if he wanted me to handle it, and he said, "Please, but don't be rude about it." Because he had already told her several times he was married, and her only response is, "Oh, I already know that," and continues on her BS. Well, I knew this break was at 10, and I made a point to come out a few minutes later. I walked to the truck, and lo and behold, Jen is in the front seat. I hear my husband say, "That's my wife's seat," and she just giggles and says she is keeping it warm. Please note we are in our 30s and this girl is 23. So, I go up to the window and say, "Thanks for keeping my seat warm, but I'm here now." She just scowls at me and says, "We are kind of talking here." So I go, "Yes, I see that, and now I would like to speak to my husband," with a smile on my face. Her face drops and she gets out quickly. Now the problem is that 3 of the guys were sitting there too, and they immediately start laughing, which embarrassed her even more. The owner's wife said I should have pulled Jen aside and said something versus embarrass her in front of everyone. Am I the a-hole? Apparently, Jen and the owner's wife are the only one who think so. Not the a-hole. Wait, so your husband directly told her to stop her behavior. It was unprofessional/unwanted. It's not cute or funny or whatever. And she continued to harass him? Why has she just not been fired? She is the owner's wife's cousin. She has been reported several times, but due to this girl being related to the owners, nothing is done. How many times has your husband had a documented meeting with HR about being harassed by this woman? Does he have the documentation showing that HR has declined to take care of the issue? He personally has only reported it once, as it just recently started happening, and he does have the written statement he made to the owner's wife. This was 5 days ago. However, there are 2 other male employees whom have reported her at least 3 times between the 2 of them, and one of them didn't get a written statement as the owner's wife said it wasn't necessary. Next story. Am I the a-hole for turning away a friend after he showed up to my birthday dinner without RSVPing? I had a birthday dinner this weekend. A week before the dinner, I sent a mass text out to 8 of my friends, telling them the location, date, and time, and to let me know by a certain date if they are coming so that I can make a reservation at a hibachi place. Most people said they could come. One friend said they couldn't make it, and another friend never responded. A couple days later, I was talking to one of the friends I invited about the dinner, and they said they thought the friend who didn't answer was coming, but they weren't sure. I said that he needs to RSVP, so I have the exact head count for the reservation. I never heard from the friend who didn't respond, so I made a reservation accordingly. I should add that before I made a reservation, I texted in the mass text chain with, "Last chance to RSVP as I'm making the reservation at this time today." The day of my dinner, the friend who didn't respond showed up right as the hostess was asking for the name of the reservation. I told her that we had an extra person show up, and I apologized. She looked to see if she could place all of us, but was unable to find a place to accommodate an extra person without us having to wait 2 hours. So I told a friend who didn't RSVP that he could not join us for dinner. He got mad and told me I was a bad friend. He told me it was embarrassing to be turned away from a birthday party and that he wasted time and gas coming out. I told him he should have RSVP'd. He told me he told our friend that he might be going. I told him that wasn't good enough, and he should have told me. He told me that I should have asked him if he was coming. Am I the a-hole? Edit. For those stating I should have assumed he was coming because another friend said he might be, I don't work off of hearsay. Especially since the friend who said this is known for saying lots of things that don't turn out to be true or turn out to not happen. I never take what they say seriously. Now for the top comments. He got mad and told me I was a bad friend, says the guy who didn't RSVP 2 times. He apparently told me he told our friend that he might be going. Even then he was not sure if he was gonna come. He told me that I should have asked him if he was coming. What does this guy think an RSVP is? Does he want someone to take a paper slip with, "Will you come to my birthday dinner?" Tick yes or no? Someone like this is not a friend. Not the a-hole. Cut him off from your life. You don't need this toxic and manipulative embarrassment of a human being for a friend. He told someone who wasn't involved in making the reservation that he might be coming. He didn't even mention it to Opie. He clearly was just digging himself into a hole by blaming Opie and couldn't even see it. Nice friend. Actually, I'm thinking he was hedging his bets. He didn't know if he was going because he was waiting to see if he had any better options for them. He didn't, or his first choice fell through, so he just went with a backup option. Not Day-Hole. He had 2 chances to RSVP. He ignored both. That's on him. Not Day-Hole. You ask people to RSVP. He didn't. You didn't include him in the reservation. End of story. Telling another friend he might be coming is not an adequate RSVP. Or actually not an RSVP at all. I was like Opie's friend back in my 20s. Can't speak for the friend, but for me, I was really distracted all the time and unable to make a commitment. Until my friends let me know that my behavior was not okay. I just went along my merry way, being obtuse and rude but without ill intent. I'm not saying this to excuse Opie's friend, more to point out that Opie did exactly the right thing by drawing a line in the sand. Best case scenario is that Opie's friend is just flighty, and not a true fundamental a-hole, and he just needed a kick in the pants to shape up. Hopefully this will do the trick. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my stepbrother and sister-in-law's expenses after kicking them out? I, 29 female, was hosting a party for my mom and stepdad's wedding anniversary. I flew out my 3 step-siblings and their partners to all spend a week in my city, and then on the weekend we would have the party. I and my husband live in a pretty small flat, so there wasn't enough rooms for everyone to stay. So we offered for my stepbrother Mark and his partner Fran to stay on our yacht for the week. No one in our family likes Fran, because she's a militant social justice warrior and can't keep her opinions to herself, and she's always no general etiquette. So the week went on with Fran making out-of-pocket comments about our city and lifestyle, which was expected but still annoying. One night, me and my husband were attending a party and I didn't really fancy inviting Fran and Mark, but we did, and surprisingly everything was fine, though we didn't see them for most of the evening. We invited a few people back to our yacht for an after-party, and of course Mark and Fran were there. Fran was quite intoxicated and started again making inappropriate comments that were making people feel a bit awkward. One of our friends was telling a story about how he did something funny that incurred a fine. Fran got upset and said how the fine he had paid was more than most people make in a year, and he should be ashamed to be happy to throw that much money around. She said she was sad to see the amount of money being spent in our city and how ungrateful and wasteful we all are. Cue awkward silence. I jokingly said that next time Fran should take herself camping because I didn't spend the money to fly her out here, treat her to dinners and parties and yachts for her to be sad. And everyone laughed and moved on. Eventually, everyone left and we went to bed. The next morning, I told Mark and Fran that I was humiliated and horrified by her behavior, and I wouldn't have people being disrespectful to me while staying on my property. Of course, they were still welcome to come to the party and the flights home were taken care of, but they couldn't stay on the yacht until the party. I probably would have relented if there had been genuine remorse from them, but Fran doubled down on her attitude and I'd had it. After a brief argument, they left and went to stay in a hotel. The party went off without a hitch. We were all keeping the peace for parents' sake. A few days after they'd gone home, they sent me a bill for their hotel stay, saying that since I'd kicked them off the yacht, I should pay for their expenses. I sent them a response telling them where they could put their bill. This made rounds and my parents are now asking that I pay the bill, as it was a lot of money for them and not for me, and they came on holiday with the expectation that they wouldn't have to budget for accommodation. I said they wouldn't have had to if they'd had an ounce of decency, and that I won't be paying. But my parents are begging me so that it doesn't impact Mark and Fran financially. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Since this is a point of contention, yes, we did ask Mark and Fran if they were okay with the after party. Mark in particular was a fan of someone coming to the after party, so was very enthusiastic about it. And Fran said yes also. Had they wanted to go to bed, we'd have gone elsewhere. They came on holiday with the expectation that they wouldn't have to budget for accommodation. Well, you invited them and accommodated them with the expectation that you wouldn't be inconvenienced or humiliated by their disrespectful, sanctimonious behavior. So they should just learn to live with their disappointment just as you do with yours. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Opie paid for an entire trip and Fran wanted to criticize them for it while still reaping the benefits. This isn't about rich versus poor. I get why people can get upset with those living lavishly. It is about benefiting from someone's kindness and showing no tact or grace or respect. That's a good point. Friend may well have a point and or justification for her arguments, but for goodness sake, there's a time and a place. Spouting off about yacht-owning people being evil whilst on said yacht is kind of stupid. That said, I'm a bit confused why someone has a small flat but owns a yacht. I feel like yacht-owning people would live in some kind of large home. But what do I know? I'm not one of the yacht-owning people. Just about the yacht thing, in our city it's pretty common. Property is super expensive. And even if you have an obscene amount of money, you won't get the kind of space you would find in New York City or Dubai, for example. They just don't build like that here. So our apartment is quite pokey. It is a 5-bedroom, but with my other step-siblings there and my husband using one as an office, we didn't have any spare space, and the rooms aren't ones where you could double up. That said, even this apartment was multiple times the cost of the yacht, so the yacht wasn't out of our means of spending. And it's the same for so many people here. Info. One of our friends was telling a story about how he did something funny that incurred a fine. Would someone who doesn't own a yacht consider this a funny anecdote? Or is that a question you can even answer? Yes, it wasn't funny, haha. It was one of those things you look back on and go, yeah, that was funny in hindsight. And he told it humorously. But it wasn't an out of touch, I backed my Lambo into a lake kind of thing. It was something that could have happened to anyone. And it's only because of the job he does that he got a fine from the association that his job is under. Other people do things like he did all the time and there is no fine.